Hey guys, good morning. This is Mike McCormick of Advanced Criminology here in Owings Mills, Maryland. Today is March the 2nd, 2018, and I'm back on today because of some very significant and troubling decisions made today by the court system in the state of Maryland. Today, it's published reports from my Twitter feed that reported by Jane Miller as well as Justin Fenton. We all know that Jane Miller is local award-winning investigative reporter here in Maryland from WBAL, and we know Justin Fenton is also award-winning news investigative reporter from the Baltimore Sun. And both have investigated the recent ruling by the court that the police officers in all police officers in the state of Maryland's names will now be removed off the Maryland Case Search database. This move has been pushed by the Fraternal Order of Police in Maryland. Now, this comes as an issue that deals with privacy of police officers and the public right to know. So that's the balance here that we're talking about. Police privacy in terms of where police officers may live at. It was determined that by having a police officer's name in the Maryland Case Search database, that one could actually further research where the officer lived. Mind you, there's only been one case that I know of, and it happened many years ago, that dealt with an individual who was able to track down a state police officer. That's the one I know of. Now, if there are any more, then quite naturally you would all contact me through comments. But this comes at a pretty strange time. If you really look at it, by deleting the police officers' names off of the Maryland Case Search, number one, it's going to make it difficult for you, me, or anybody else to connect a case number with a police officer, as well as anything else that you may want to track in that particular case as the case moves through the system. Case in point, how would the news media know when officers are going to be sentenced, particularly in the Gun Trace Task Force, because these things are generally published in the Maryland Case Search in terms of the when certain things are going to happen and what dates they're going to happen. And certainly by not having that information online, certainly detracts from what we believe the public's right to know should be. So, you know, this is where we are. And it's, I tell you, timing is everything. We've all grown up in that era where we've heard, you know, friends, family, co-workers and all talk about timing, how timing affects a lot of things. You know, what prompts certain things to happen, why they happen at certain specific times. You know, when we talk, even when I talk about all the investigations going on within the city right now that deal with the corruption issues in the city, you know, it's all about timing. You know, can we put this time with that time? Can we match up this person as being this, at this particular location? Can we match up who wrote what report, when they wrote what report? And so it makes it difficult for investigators, you know, not only from the news media outlets, but also just, you know, some of the things that I do. You guys watch me enough to know that, you know, I did a video and put it out a week or two ago that dealt with information that I literally gleaned off of the Maryland Case Search. Excuse me, guys. Sorry about that. I didn't turn the phone off, and I think we've all experienced that before. So you would not really have access to, again, I would have never had access to do some of the things that I did just recently with showing you the comparisons of how officers work together. And when you look at the dates and times, it corresponds with some of the corruptional activities that officers were accused of from 2007 to 2010. And this is what it's all about, you know, the public's right to know this information. But I will tell you, and I'll probably report on this when I deal with misconduct of police officers and how the Fraternal Order of Police nationwide has got its teeth in the court system to enable police officers. And when we look at some of the incidences of corruption and misconduct, a lot of it is supported by the Fraternal Order of Police. in terms of due process. Basically, the police department officers have a different set of rules when it comes to due process in America that you and me every day do not have. On our jobs, we don't even have that. Many of us don't. So it's an issue. Now, they'll push back and say, no, that's not how, we want things to be conducted with our membership. But that's not true. I have study after study by researchers well known around the country who talk about the Fraternal Order of Police's ability to shield, and that's what it is. That's the word that we want to use today, is to shield officers from investigation and to shield them from the public's eye so that we don't even know what's going on. And now the problem that we have now is that you have a major, you have investigations that are going on in the city right now where officers are being questioned about their activity in corruption. And now we have a Maryland court system has decided that no, we're no longer going to publish this information. Now, the FOP cited one reason, and that was the reason I just said, is because someone would be able to locate where an officer lives at. Well, guess what? That's not you and my problem. That's not our problem. The problem is the inefficiencies in the Maryland case search system. Technically speaking, that if an officer has a personal issue and he goes to court on a civil matter, in most cases, sure, in that civil complaint would be his name, would be his address. Now, that's the court system's job, right, to remove that information prior to publishing it within the database. To me, that's common sense. Why would you publish a known officer's address on a national database and local database that can be accessed by anybody? That doesn't make too much sense. So it seems to me that the court system should take more accountability in how they run that particular database search, as opposed to just blanketly shutting you and me and anybody else out of that information. Again, the public's right to know. So, I had to come back on because, again, I just received this information. And so I thought that it's important to get it out to you guys in reference to what the position is today. Let me see. In fact, Justin Fenton reported, he said, just one example of the impact of this, there's no way to look up which gun trace task force cases have upcoming hearings to vacate convictions or change sentences, or which cases remain intact, and prosecutors have not given an update on their case review since December 8th. So the news media has been shut out with this since December 8th. It says here, apparently police unions, again the unions, were pushing for this change, allowing anyone to see the full names of officers on charging documents can make it easier to find out where an officer lives at. Okay, well, if that's the case, you can find out where anybody lives at if that's the issue. But the issue is, how does that tie in? In other words, if you could demonstrate through studies that X amount of officers' names appear in that database, and since those officers' names have appeared in those databases, X amount of incidences have occurred at that officer's home. Look, man, I went to school like the rest of us, and one thing I learned in graduate school is that you can blanketly do things, but when you start at this level that we're talking about here in the state, that you have to have a study. You have to conduct the research to make the connection to warrant the decision to remove officers' names from the database. And the state of Maryland has not established that at all. It's nowhere in the world, it's nowhere in the record that they've established that having an officer's name on that database in whatever capacity has created havoc within policing in the state of Maryland. They haven't made that case. What else? Justin Fenton, he just reported on the Twitter feed. I have it right here. He says he's at the Baltimore City Circuit Court right now, this morning. And he's trying to access the public terminal data so he can go into the database. And they actually took the computer out of the clerk's office where typically he would go every day to access this information. And then so he was escorted to another office where he can look at land records where no one can even log into the system. Well, that's typical Baltimore City for you. I can tell you that right now. It's funny how society moves in terms of technology and why a lot of state agencies can't come along with us is unbelievable. Let's see here. Justin Fenton. Just wanted to see what else here was on this issue here. Okay, so you know, those are some of the things that have been reported by top reporter Justin Fenton, Baltimore Sun. He's probably like the premier reporter when it comes to the crime beat here in the city, other than the investigative reporter Jane Miller. So I just wanted to bring that out to you guys and just start to look at, again, there are so many things happening in front of our faces, not only on the local scale here in the state of Maryland, but on the national scale as well, and in Washington, D.C. Please, I beg of you to look at these things. They are happening in front of us, and we're not doing anything about it. And the only people that will suffer in the long run will be us. And we'll look back at this 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now. Our kids will look back at it and ask us, how come we didn't do anything about what's going on in Washington, D.C.? How come we didn't do anything about what's going on in the state of Maryland? You know, they're going to ask us this question. And then, you know, like all children and young adults, you know, they wonder why. And so it's incumbent upon us, you know, as adults to do diligence, you know, keep our public officials accountable for the decisions that they make. And the only way you can do that is when you go to the polls. Now, I sound like I'm trying to legislate for a particular, you know, platform, but I'm not at all. I'm just giving you how things work in real life. And I think we all know that as adults, how things work in real life. But again, I started off this whole video by saying, you know, we have to weigh the balance. And anytime you're looking at information and the public's right to know, okay, you know, we talk about a First Amendment right to know these things, okay, and balance that on privacy, you know, it's always going to be a delicate balance. But is it to the balance of one group of people in terms of benefiting and the other group of people not benefiting? And so that'll be a decision. Trust me, this is a huge deal. Reporters, I'm telling you now, I can just look at some of the tweets I've seen. The reporters are outraged by this, local reporters, because they make their money based upon how much information they can get, particularly when it comes to the public record. It's hard enough as it is. If you sat down right now and wrote a letter to the police department right now, and you expressed all your feelings and concerns about certain things, you probably would get a response, and it would be maybe 2 lines in a paragraph on a piece of paper. Thank you for writing us. Someone will get back to you. Well, we don't even know when that's going to be. Okay, so they're not into public relations like many people might think, and we know this because anytime that I can find stuff that the police department is shielding, and I love that word, shielding, then, you know, then anytime I can find it, it tells you right there that certain information that should be available to us is not being made available to us, and we have to ask the final question, why? I'm done. I appreciate your time. I'm Mike McCormick with Advanced Criminology here in Owings Mills. I should get a lot of feedback and a lot of comments from this, and I'll talk to you guys the next time I post. Thank you.